Hello everyone, welcome back. Today, I will tell you a story about the crown. According to common sense, the throne should be passed on to the most powerful nobles or the family that is married to the royal family. But King Edmund, the shrewd ruler, designed a test. He tested the ability to see. In this test, 3 young people walked to the palace, but only one of them really understood what the crown meant. Let's get started right away. One day, the old King Edmund stood at the end of the palace and looked at his face with ravines in the mirror. 73 years bent his back, but failed to bend his worries about the country. The mirror reflected the empty throne behind him. He had no heirs, and the country had no heirs. Your Majesty, the announcement has been sent to the whole country. The Prime Minister reported in a low voice, all young people who meet the requirements will receive an invitation. The king's fingers stroked the mirror. I am not looking for the smartest or the strongest person, Prime Minister. The weight of the crown cannot be borne by shoulders alone. The Prime Minister hesitated and answered, but the test content. Let them make a choice when no one is watching. The king turned around, with wisdom in his eyes. Only then can you see a person's true soul. The king continued. 30 days after the announcement was issued, the 3 young men arrived at the outskirts of the royal city almost at the same time. Ajay stepped out of the gilded carriage, and every pearl button on his silk shirt was worth a fortune. Finally here, he flicked the non-existent dust on his cuffs. Father is right, this outfit is worth every gold coin. Not far away, Bella's caravan was unloading. The only son of the richest man in the south checked the list of goods on the accompanying carriage: 20 pieces of silk, 10 boxes of spices, 5 boxes of jewelry. Very good, these are enough to impress any judge. And on the dusty roadside, Gabriel patted his worn backpack. He had used up the last piece of dry food 3 days ago, and now his stomach was like a beast gnawing, gurgling non-stop. Hold on a little longer, he said to himself, you can see the palace after turning this hill. An old man fell in the middle of the road, revealing purple skin under his tattered clothes. He was breathing weakly, and his turbid eyes were half open, like 2 pools of muddy water that were about to dry up. Al's carriage went straight around. Get out of the way, old man. The driver waved his whip. My young master is going to the king's selection. Bella's caravan paused for a while. Give him 2 coppers, he ordered from the car window, and ask if there is a doctor nearby, but hurry, we have to go to the city before sunset. Gabriel knelt beside the old man. When he touched the old man's hot forehead, a familiar fear gripped his heart. 7 years ago, the same high temperature took his mother away. Sir, can you hear me? He asked softly, while taking off his coat and wrapping the old man's trembling body. The old man's dry lips moved. Water, give me some water. Gabriel looked around. The nearest stream was at the other end of the valley, and it would take an hour to go back and forth. The royal city was in front of him, and the selection was about to begin. He bit his lower lip and took something out of his bag. It was the tin kettle left by his mother. I'll be back soon, he promised, running towards the stream. When Gabriel finally arrived at the palace, the sunset had dyed the minaret red. He was covered in dust, the kettle was gone, and his coat was gone. The guard frowned and looked at him. You are too late, the selection is over, boy. Please, Gabriel said hoarsely, please let me in, even if it's just to let me see if the old man has been cured. Stop, what old man? A majestic voice came from inside the door. The guard immediately straightened his back. Your Majesty. The old King Edmund walked out of the shadows. At this moment, he was wearing a purple and gold royal robe, but Gabriel still recognized those eyes instantly. He was the old man who fell ill on the roadside, or rather, the old man was the king. Why are you here? Gabriel asked stutteringly. The king did not answer directly, but led him into the royal city. Ajay and Bella were already there. They were dressed brightly, and their faces were full of expectations. All 3 of you went through my test, the king's voice echoed under the vault, but only one of you actually saw it. Ajay frowned and said, "Test? You mean those court etiquette questions?" I answered all the questions about taxes and war strategy dash. And I showed enough gifts to fill the treasury, Bella added eagerly, and experience in managing caravans. The king raised his hand to signal silence. He turned to Gabriel. "Tell them, young man, what choice you made today." Gabriel felt his throat tighten. I met a sick old man. I helped him get water and light a fire until the doctor came and took him into the palace. He lowered his head and muttered softly, "I know this made me miss the selection, but I don't regret it." The Hall of Mirrors fell silent. Ajay suddenly laughed. "Just because of this? Your Majesty, would you rather hand over the kingdom to a countryman who can't even manage his time?" The king's eyes became angry and sharp. "When the three of you saw the same old man, Ajay saw an obstacle, Bella saw an opportunity for charity, and Mr. Gabriel." He turned to Gabriel and said, "He saw a person." Bella's face turned pale. "But that's not fair. You disguised yourself as a beggar, which is clearly a deception." "The first lesson of the crown," the king whispered, "is to understand that you will never know who is watching you. The real ruler does not make choices on the throne, but follows the compass of his heart when no one knows." He took off his crown, and the jewel-studded gold ring gleamed in the twilight. "Did you know that when craftsmen make crowns, they leave lead blocks on the inside? This is to remind the wearer that the more dazzling the glory, the heavier the responsibility." Gabriel stared at the inconspicuous gray metal on the inside of the crown. He suddenly understood something. So the test is never about ability. It's about seeing, the king nodded, seeing those who are not seen, feeling the pain of those who are not felt. The real weight of the crown is not gold, but all the lives you choose to see. When the king put the crown on Gabriel's head, the thousands of mirrors in the Hall of Mirrors reflected this picture at the same time. Ajay left angrily, Bella stood there, and Gabriel, he felt not joy, but a deep awe. "Now," the old king whispered, "you will begin to learn how to wear this invisible weight." Years later, when historians recorded the reign of good King Gabriel, they always mentioned the day that changed the fate of the kingdom. But what official records never mentioned was the first thing the new king did after the coronation ceremony. He walked out of the palace alone and came to the three-way intersection on the outskirts of the city, waiting there until a ragged old woman appeared with a cane. "Madam," he knelt down to her eye level, "excuse me, do you need help?" In the afterglow of the setting sun, the lead inside the crown seemed to become heavier, but Gabriel knew that this was the weight it should have. The story is over, dear friends. Do you understand the story? Many years later, when King Gabriel's rule was praised by the world, many scholars tried to analyze his success. Some said it was because he made fairer laws. Some said it was because he reduced the privileges of the nobles. Others said it was because he allowed merchants to trade freely and filled the treasury. But as a narrator, I must point out that these reforms are effective precisely because they are not based on cold calculations. King Gabriel's rule began with a simple choice. When no one was watching, he still chose to see those who were forgotten. And when he put on the crown, the first thing he did was not to issue a decree or review the army, but to go back to the fork in the road and kneel down to look an old woman in the eye. The lead weight of the crown is not a burden, but a reminder. The true power of a ruler does not lie in being looked up to, but in being willing to bow down.